So today we're going to talk about building up our productivity because it's been destroyed, strengthening our relationships because they are being hit every single day, every single moment, and then also establishing a holistic well-being. And I've picked kind of three really key, strong medicines, if you will, for those three problems. All right, so let's get into it. My background, real quick. For those of you who don't know me, I think there's a lot of people that came to the last one. So these are just for the new folks. My background is that I'm a public health physician. I was a physician and a public health physician. I went into public health because I really wanted to change behavior at scale. And that led me to being an intervention designer at a very large company. I was the medical director of health and wellness innovation at Aetna, and dealt with kind of 30 million person, as well as different segments, children, seniors, adults, parents, diabetes, like sort of large group design, if you will, for interventions. And then currently, as Fresh Try CEO, we have a virtual company. And so coming into the pandemic, we had already worked out a lot of the kinks, and I'm hoping to share, not all the kinks, of course, but we have some sort of jump on this because we didn't start this right when the pandemic started. And then also, I think my greatest qualification might be that I was a single mom for 14 years, and that taught me a level of grit and patience and sort of expectation lowering, if you will, that I think is really kicking in these days and helping me to be more resilient. So I'll share a little bit about that because there are shortcuts to get there. All right, so my legal team wanted me to remind everyone that this is not medical advice. Given that I'm an MD, I have to say this. So consult with your doctor. But I wanted to remind you that, you came here because you have this aspiration, you have high performance in your blood, in your background, in your DNA. And don't forget that as we go. It can get really easily lost when you're judging yourself every day, or that when we don't meet the par of our output that we want and all the things that are going on. But basically what we're dealing with is a bizarro world, right? So we have children in the background of these very important live events that we're a part of, and even our spouse is tackling the child to get them out of the shot. Really, all of the pretense is gone. All of our pretending, this guy has a suit on. Why does he have a suit on? It's kind of this relic from the past. And the thing that is enheartening is that we can be more casual, we can be more authentic, we can be more human with each other and really bond over those kinds of experiences because nobody's perfect. And we can't pretend anymore to be perfect. And that gives a certain leeway and a certain sort of, connection with other people that we didn't have before. We also have sort of new irritations that we didn't, or agitations that we didn't know would set us off. So we've got kind of this world where we're in close proximity in ways that we didn't know would trigger us in certain ways. So what we're dealing with is this kind of large-scale experiment of what happens when you put a time into a blender, such as that there's no me time, there's no work time, there's no family time, there's no kids away time, there's no date night time, there's no going out time. And I'm not being depressing here because I'm gonna give you ways to think of this that are going to be more positive, that are going to be more delineating, so that you can grab back control of the reins. Because right now everybody's time is in this blender, and we've got to have a different tact, different strategies. So we're going to focus on three areas. One is covering productivity. This has all been disrupted. Relationships are also in disruption, and we'll cover that. And we'll also cover holistic well-being as kind of a larger swath of how we just manage every day. And what I want you to do is pick one, and please only one, habit to practice. I know that in a situation like this, I'm going to be sharing a lot of tips, a lot of strategies that I think that you are, you're going to feel like, oh, I want that, and I want that, and I want that. So try to, as I go through all of these medicines, if you will, I want you to take one. I want you to take one vitamin that is going to help you, and I'm saying vitamin metaphorically, a habit that is going to be on the following slides that will coordinate to the thing that is most important to you. So as you go through this thing, let the information and the insights kind of roll over you, but there will be one that's your favorite. And so pick your favorite one, maybe take a little note app out or a scratch pad or something like that right now and look for it. That way, when you feel it resonate with you, then you say, okay, I'm going to basically design this habit to start practicing. I'm going to do this because I think that'll give me the most control over the suffering and the experience that I'm having. And I want to say suffering because I've come to the realization that we are not optimizing anymore. Optimization and all of those wonderful, beautiful practices are peacetime practices. We are in not survival mode, but grounding ourselves. Okay. So when you practice a habit, I want you to think of it in a if this, then that kind of format. If this happens, then I will practice this new habit. That will give you some traction, some grip on what you want to change. Okay. So I want to turn everybody into a stronger behavior changer, self-behavior changer. Talk about productivity. All right. So I was having a conversation the other night with my husband, and I was talking about how I just have this kind of strange day of binging on things. And we're in this weird world where, there's productivity distractions, productivity, weird behaviors that kind of, where do those come from? I am not consciously aware that I'm going to binge on food all day, but I was clearly acting something out from my subconscious and probably some stress that I hadn't taken care of, something that I hadn't snuck up on me, or some way I was triggered by my environment or my relationships that caused me to really focus on that. And it interrupted my productivity for the day, because then I felt really tired and kind of lethargic. And I had to take a power nap, about like 30-minute power nap in the middle of the day to just recover for that day. And you may not have a job where you can do that, but I think, scheduling right after you get off your shift, right after you get off work, those kinds of things to really say, okay, do I need a recharge? Do I need to just get my brain back? Okay, so that's productivity. Why is this happening to all of us? There's not a single person, a professional that I know who is responsible for anything in the world who is not right now tired and unproductive in intermittent spurts, And so we're all trying to grab onto this. This is why it's happening. In your brain, habits are taking up about 95%. Okay? And this is because the brain wants everything that you do as much as possible to go into autopilot so that you don't have to spend any extra neural energy to make it happen. Okay. This picture is a very interesting study that happened at Yale a few years back. And Emily Finn's group had figured out that each one of these bubbles is like a superhighway. So we are very habitual in the way that we think. This is almost like a fingerprint, if you could imagine, of how this particular brain thinks. And when in response to a particular stimuli or a particular trigger, it will run this pattern pretty reliably. And that really indicates how much routinization and habituation we have going on here, which is kind of works against us when we try to change our behavior too, because you run up against that wall of all of this inertia and all of this fingerprinting and this wiring and these grooves that are so robust in the brain. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change it. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So basically, if you can think about the pandemic and work as we know it, this impossible situation where you're available 24/7, what happened that caused the most pain and disorientation is that all of our routines just blew up. The world as we knew it, and all of those habits, all those 95%, all that wiring that we have is not irrelevant, but it's like disrupted. It's confused. It's like, do I do this still? I don't know, And so there is a lot of what our tiredness is coming from is just the disorientation itself. An aspect of that is that we are using this like 5% of our slow brain, and I'll talk about it in a second, to make all decisions, whether it's a decision on a doctor or where to go for care, or do I do telemedicine or not? There's like this little, it's almost like living your life with the muscle of your pinky finger instead of your whole body, okay? Because we are really limited in the amount of slow brain activity. And this is kind of thinking fast and slow. This is system 2 thinking for those of you into behavioral psych. But you know that there's only a small amount of that every day. And then we have to go to sleep for the night and get back, that small amount. And so if you burn it out with decision-making, with, one-offing, with trying to figure out, what to do, problem solving, like, in your next moment, and you're out of your element, you're out of your routines, then you're going to burn through that by lunch, And so that is why you're tired for the last half of the day, because you're spent. You are legitimately spent. And I want you to have compassion for yourself and your situation. And then also let's turn it around and let's do some things that we have power over. All right. So there's too many one-offs, there's this idea called switching costs, where you do this, then you do that, then you do this, then you do that. The fact that you don't have things into systems, that you don't have them into habits, that you don't have them docked into routines, means that you are one-offing this, that, and the other thing. We have a kind of a candidate for turning it into routine here at my house, which is we ordering this kind of produce box, so that it's, a little safer, a little bit less risk of contamination or COVID exposure. And we've been kind of deciding every week, like, do we do it? Do we order it? Do we not order it? That's something that is, if I could just habituate that and just say, okay, that's our routine. We're going to do that every week. Set it on autopilot like the brain wants. And then I get that much energy back to spend on work, instead of burning myself out on food decisions every day. There's a lot of new behaviors that we're doing. There's kind of this, kaleidoscope of all these things that are just floating in this cloud of new behaviors. And those that do not systemize this are just burning through this slow brain energy and tiring themselves out on an hourly basis. So what's the solution? The solution is a very special mindset that we've discovered here at Fresh Try that I want to share with you. It's yours to keep. You don't have to do anything with our company ever again if you don't want to. But we have an insight that I think is very valuable and actually the most significant finding of my career thus far. So in order to restore energy, we need to routinize and systemize every single new behavior that this pandemic or this economy is throwing at us into habits as soon as possible. That allows us to recapture that energy, to recapture that slow brain in order to conduct smarter things or even to make it through our day all the way. So here's how it kind of goes. Unless it becomes a mindset, and this is kind of, you have behavior, you have your habits, and you've got your mindset. If you don't reach the end of the line where mindset is stable, then your habits will kind of revert back to behavior. So anything that you do, these one-offs, I'll call that a short-lived transactional behavior. So my decision to go to the doctor or my vaccination or whatever I'm doing is a behavior. But if for some reason I want to create a new habit, so one new habit I have is taking vitamin D, and that's protective for my immune system, for viruses of all kinds. And so I'm enhancing my protection, my ability to protect myself to, into a habit. But if I had to think every morning, oh, I need to take my vitamin D, what I do instead is I put it in the group of things that vitamins that I take every day. And then it's just kind of in this group of morning jars, if you will, or bottles. And I throw it into my palm with all of the other ones, and then I chug it back. So it's on its way to becoming a habit. But if it doesn't get held in place by a mindset, in this particular special mindset I'm going to share with you, then it will not last. It will just, the second I run out, I won't reorder the bottle. Maybe I, move things around and I get disoriented because it's not in the right place to trigger my memory to take it, gets separated from its other vitamins, those kinds of things. So the mindset is the thing that kind of cleans house. It kind of comes back and sweeps through and says, this is what matters to me, and keeps the habits relevant to you so that you're not doing things that are, unimportant anymore. And I talked about I talked about this mindset that we discovered. So a few years back, we did a research project with Walmart, and we studied people in their employee base, associates who had dramatically changed their life and lifestyle and health and kept it going for many, many years. And they had this very distinctive And this is the only thing they had in common, was this distinctive mindset. Okay. And then we also saw that it didn't exist in people who, tried to do things, tried to change their behavior, and then just relapsed or went back, whether it was weight loss and they regained the weight or whatever the case may be. So what they did is three things that are different. One is that they had this mindset of, I'm going to practice something and it's going to be a game instead of a hard goal that I could fail. And this is important because in your brain, there's a little area called the habenula. And if you trigger that, it is a kill switch for your motivation. And so you can lose your motivation without even knowing it because you think you failed at something. So they had a protective way of thinking about behavior change itself, just even before they tried anything. The next thing they would do is practice something. They would say, what's next? What can I get myself to do? What should I try? And that's why we call ourselves Fresh Try, because the habits that we have people try are called tries, because we're trying to, take advantage of this fact that it's about trying. And then the third component is iteration. This is what is really, really special about this mindset. I haven't seen it anywhere else. And I hope that if nothing else, you remember to iterate on your life right now, because that is what's going to get you through the pandemic. That's what's going to get you through this economy. That's what's going to get you through all of this disruptive change, no matter where you are. Iteration simply means that these people would tweak and adjust it. For example, if they start out with crispy vegetables and hummus as a snack, and then they realized 2 days in, oh my God, I hate crispy vegetables. I never even tried vegetables before, but I like cooked vegetables. That's an iteration. That's an adjustment or a variation on the theme, experimenting with their behavior to see what they can get traction in. And then the other iteration is that when they got tired of the mushy vegetables, when they got tired of the cooked vegetables, then they would try something else. They would try to put it into a burrito, or they would try. So it's this relentlessness that I want to point out, that you can adopt and just expect that. So when life is throwing you so much change so quickly, the only way that you're going to get through, we're going to get through this, and this is helping me every single moment of every single day, is to iterate your way through it. No failure. Second topic, relationships. All right. So everybody's having relationship issues. If you're really having a horrible time with your relationship, I have tremendous compassion. I send to you. I know that my own divorce years ago was one of the most difficult things I ever went through. And I will also say that you will survive. You can survive that if that's what's up for you. But everybody else is kind of on a spectrum, right, of different qualities in their relationship. But I would say that pretty much all of us are in the same boat in terms of relationships being disrupted, whether it is our personal love relationships or relationships with our family, or not being able to see our grandparents, or all these kinds of things. And it's a challenging time. I have never been so agitated or irritated in my relationships as I am right now. And I have to watch myself. For example, my husband, my sweet husband, had gone down. We live in the country, and so we've got this really long driveway. It goes down hills. And he went downhill to grab the mail one day. And on the way back, he had stopped at this one juncture and started to back up the hill instead of turning around at the juncture, because he just decided he would, that would be a shortcut for him. And then he got distracted, and he was multitasking with the radio or whatever. And then his car drove 2 tires off the edge of the down. There's like a big ditch there. It's about 20 feet down. And he would have destroyed the car, probably injured himself. And the car is like almost like on a movie. It's like tilting and swaying on its axis. So we had to call the kind of towing company and get it out of there. And he was so embarrassed, and I was actually really angry at first. And I had to kind of check in with myself of, how can I deal with this anger? How can I deal with this annoyance, this irritation? Because my nerves are so fried, right? And what I did instead was I just kind of dug deep, and I was like, I'm thankful you're safe. I'm thankful the car isn't more damaged. I'm thankful that, this happened so that you could learn that multitasking is maybe not in the cards for you right now. So there are a lot of effort things that we need to do around relationships that, we may not feel like doing. We may feel just, to the first kind of topic, we may feel so exhausted that we don't have anything to give to our relationships. So what we're going to do is talk about what's an easy way, what are some easy low-hanging fruit for stabilizing and improving relationships. And this is really about you too. I mean, it's not some philanthropic thing to make your relationship better. It improves your quality of life and makes your day-to-day, living more peaceful and more manageable, or even, feel like you've got some sort of grip on it as well. So it's something that can really eat at us if we don't have some effort in there and some cultivation. So we know that we are easily annoyed. We know that if we are parents, and so much compassion for the parents, that we're never off duty. And this is where sort of my experience of being a single mom for 14 years gives me a lot of relatability to that, like never done, never off, no breaks, full contact parenting. But it's even worse now, because at least my kids went to school, and a lot of people don't have that luxury, and that's up in the air in many, many states. So it is definitely such a huge stressor. We're stuck together. We're kind of, there's kind of this concept of torpedo relationships that, before the pandemic, if you were kind of dating, like you moved in together, or if you were kind of dating, but you weren't quite sure, you exploded, and went the other direction. So it's this really sort of polarizing environment for our relationships. So what can we do? I want to offer the solution that I think is the most needful right now, the most important for you to focus on, and that is oxytocin. So oxytocin is a hormone, and originally thought to be a female hormone, discovered in the 1940s. And it didn't get a lot of research on it for a very long time because it was considered a female hormone. And in that way, it was a little bit marginalized, frankly, because they thought, well, it's just for mamas and babies. We don't need to know much about it. Well, it turns out that the last 3 decades of research on oxytocin, rewards pathways, health, stress, sleep, everything is wired in and maybe even dictated by oxytocin. So let's go over the benefits. This is my sort of pitching oxytocin to you as an important thing for you to focus on. It is lowering, it lowers your cortisol and your adrenaline. So all your stress hormones, it lowers those down. So you're going to feel less stressed. It lowers blood pressure and heart rate. Again, a lot of people are kind of taking this emotional stuff, stuffing it into their cardiovascular system and getting a lot of cardiovascular stress during this time. So this is best friend. Lowering depression and stress itself, lowering pain, like opioids. It has an opioinergic response and action in the body. It also increases dopamine, which is reward pathway, as well as activating feelings of connection and positivity through serotonin and other means. And so it has this sort of, it's called the bonding hormone, and it can bond in not so helpful ways too, because if you don't feel love for somebody, it can make that worse. It can make it polarized. You can make you tribal, like us versus them. So you have to really watch out that you're not playing into that level of oxytocin, not being at odds with other people or judging other people, because oxytocin can separate you further from loving other people and feeling connected to them and feeling supported by them. And the only one who, loses in that situation is us, if we don't really watch where we're placing our oxytocin. So I want to give you a couple of habits that you can adopt. Again, you're looking for which one of these is yours, which one is me, for you. Number one is eye contact. Even over Zoom, you can get about 80% of oxytocin increase that you would get in eye contact in person. So it's okay to, have that eye contact with people and to really invest in that. Even if it's afar, even if you're separated from loved ones who are not able to, see you in person. Massage, touch, intimacy. This is kind of the juiciness of life, right? And this is an area that I can speak, many of my friends and relationships that I've checked in with, as well as my own, we're all struggling with this one right now. So if you are in a relationship, just even soft massage, you don't have to be a masseuse or anything fancy. Just even that, not only will that give your partner oxytocin jolts, but you will get the same amount of oxytocin increase. So it's not selfless, it's a little bit selfish, in fact. And so if you're not down for, intimacy, which is the, or I'll say it, orgasm, I can say that as a doctor, orgasm releases the greatest amount of oxytocin, or it's one of the peaks that we have as human animals. Okay. And touch is getting there. So if you're not down for intimacy, if you're not really feeling it, this life isn't very sexy, frankly, right now. And so a lot of us, we're just trying to get just a little bit of oxytocin from physical contact, physical touch, and, even massage, even hugging or massaging yourself, I think has the same effect. Cuddles and hugs. If you've got kids, if you've got dogs, if you have whatever you have, hug them, cuddle, really make an effort. And that also increases your oxytocin. Petting dogs. If you have a pet, and I know a lot of people who have gotten pets since the pandemic started because of this, it's an easy, way for you to get your oxytocin. Even petting a dog for 15 minutes while you're doing something else is going to give you and them an oxytocin boost. Sharing food and eating. Now let's talk about this one, because this has gone awry for a lot of people. If I share food with you, we're both going to get an oxytocin hit. If I'm just alone and I live alone and I make food for myself, I also get an oxytocin hit. But that can be problematic with COVID-related weight gain. So we have to watch out for what's called suckling. So suckling is going way back to when we're babies and we're engineered to, suck milk from our mama. And what happens with suckling is that we can repeat that with things like alcohol, with things like eating, with things like smoking, So those habits are basically stand-ins for a very primitive, ancient part of ourselves that is trying to get our oxytocin. So what I would recommend instead is going another route. Like I do oxytocin nasal spray every day, and you have to do your own research on that. But I find that it helps me with, not going to this suckling, eating kind of way of getting my oxytocin. Or I pet my dog. Generosity is another mechanism. If I'm giving to somebody else, then I'm going to receive a hit of oxytocin. Music, listening to music, playing music, singing, even dancing with other people, and that kind of exercise is really going to increase and help with my oxytocin. Again, you're picking one of these. Please don't start making a list for yourself of all of these that you are going to absolutely do. You will get this recording, by the way, so you don't have to write them all down. Gratitude. Gratitude is another source of oxytocin. And remember I said when my husband almost drove off the edge of the cliff there, I went to gratitude because I know this neuroscience. I know that I can't be a victim and agitated and grateful at the same time. So I substituted and gave myself an oxytocin hit, rebonded with my partner, and got myself out of that really bad feeling. Third topic, holistic well-being. This is a huge sort of issue that's kind of everywhere, and so it's really hard to kind of pinpoint what's going to work for you versus the person next to you versus me, that kind of thing. But I've got a a really good focus point here. How can we build this holistic but realistic level of well-being? We are in a situation where we're doing all these things and we're not able to take care of ourselves as well. And so what's happening is that we're getting stressed out. And I want to show and unpack why that's happening. So before COVID, basically your life looked something like this. You may not have this type of job, but you had a job and you went to that job, or you had a routine and you went to that routine. And that basically creates a feedback loop for your brain called me. So it's your self-image. It's what you are comfortable with. It's your comfort zone, AKA. And there's a part of your brain that basically is monitoring, is that me? Is that me? So that when you pick food choices, when you pick a house, when you pick, where to live, if you're buying a new car, if you're getting a new workout outfit, whatever it is, that me, not me filter is constantly going. And what happens is that everything right now is violating our self-image prior to COVID. So we're in the not me phase. Like, this doesn't look like my life. That doesn't look like my living room. My father died a couple months ago, and I still have a pile of his stuff that we took out of his apartment in my front room because I've been picking away at it, but I don't have a block of time to go put it somewhere else. So kind of looks like this picture here where there's a bunch of stuff in the background that I'm just ignoring for right now. And I've got to get some sort of batch of time on a weekend to clear that more fully. So this is what happens when you're thrown into your not me state, okay? So this is a situation where people are in a fMRI machine, which is a functional MRI machine, which measures the blood flow in your brain, and it measures the types of areas that light up under circumstances. So this lit up brain, and think of the flames area as like the hot spots. That's where the blood is really flowing. So that's high activity, wherever you see the lights, the red and the orange and the white there. And in this case, the control people are basically in a situation where they are, not in a me state. Okay, they're kind of being triggered to be not me. All right, and you can see that their brain is a little bit active. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Right. Compare that to people who have major depressive disorder. People with major depressive disorder, you can tell. You don't have to know any brain science to tell that this brain on the right is on fire, right? And that's because of something called rumination. And that's what happens when you're thrown off into this not me space. Add to that, we are living in a news bath, a soup of triggers that no matter what your point of view or opinions are, you're having to judge and opine on things all day, every day that are coming at you from your phone. I would suggest turning off your phone alerts today. Maybe that's your habit, is just to do that from now on and see how long you can keep that going. And all this points to the fact that there's this kind of universal bucket that all the things that trouble us are starting to fall into, or starting to have in common, I should say, which is rumination. So we looked at those brains, they're on fire. Basically, they're cycling, that the self-talk is running, okay? And it has different scripts. And that's what we call anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, and even at the far end of the spectrum, PTSD, okay? So who knew? I mean, when I was going through medical school, I didn't know that anxiety and depression were kind of neurologically the same kind of mechanism, but different symptoms, okay? So anxiety, for example, is ruminating on what the future is, the uncertainty of the future. What's going to happen? I don't know. It feels very groundless. Like that sort of anxiety is pointed in the future direction of time. Depression tends to be more, in the current, in the past. It's, I had, nobody cared for me as a child. I was neglected. Nobody respects me. Whatever the case may be, that people are running these scripts that cause depression because it creates self-absorption. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean that in a neuroscientific way. You're just judging the situation all the time. Here's the solution that is the most reliable and the one that you probably know that you should do, but you don't get yourself to do it. So we're going to go over some habits of breathing and breath that can help to undo this rumination. Because what do you want to do with rumination? If you've got a loop, you want to like get that out of there. You want to disrupt that right away, or as soon as you notice it. And your breath is your greatest, most available, most potent, and most helpful tool for that. And just because we breathe every day, we take it for granted. We think, oh, breathing, oh, come on, whatever. But there's actually a book by Fester right now on breathing that I would recommend if you want to go into the science of it. It is powerful. Most of us or 50% of us are mouth breathing, especially as you age. You mouth breathe more and more and more. And that actually has risks for Alzheimer's. It bundles up all of your neck and shoulders into a wad, and then you have all this tension that you're holding there. That stress just deposits more and more tension into those muscles because you're only using 10% of your diaphragm, right? So probably since I started talking about this topic, you're more conscious right now of your breath, and it's kind of like when you talk about posture, everybody kind of straightens up, but your breath is really something that you can use as a tool, as a mechanism for getting better. So again, breathing, deep breathing, and shallow breathing associated with Alzheimer's, neck and shoulder problems, sleep problems, mood problems, stress problems. It is the fundamental basis of why you feel the way you feel well-being wise. So why not work on that? Why not do something as often as you can, build it into an automated habit, hold it in place with your mindset, look for new ways to play with your breath and to expand your breath so that it stays interesting for your brain, right? So here's a couple of habits that you might choose from. Number one is just the deep breath, the classic, it could be a sigh. It could be, at night, you could just go into deep breathing to put yourself to sleep, It could be during a meeting or during work time when somebody at work triggers you, or you feel scared, that you might lose your job, whatever the case may be, to combat that fear, that rumination of anxiety of the future, depression of the past, obsessing about things, worrying about things. Deep breathing is your ticket out of there, okay? A second one is called a double inhale, single exhale breath. And this is like, and animals do that. We do that. And basically it creates this parasympathetic tone, or this parasympathetic message to your brain of, hey, relax, and for some reason it's more potent than just the single deep breath. By the way, on deep breathing, I did a clinical study when I was at Aetna, and we did, mindfulness against yoga as two methods of stress reduction, which is great. But we also did controls who just basically breathed deeply in the post-test, and using a technology called M-Wave. And shout out to HeartMath, who, were these kind of hippies out here in California in the 70s, and they really figured out this very, very, amazing metric called the heart rate variability metric. And they have this little device. I think it used to clip on your ear. I don't know what they do now. They probably have advanced on their technology. Apologies, I haven't looked at it lately. But it's a rhythmic breathing thing, and there's tons of these apps. Okay, so if you want to adopt this, you can kind of do a rhythmic breathing type of deal. But what it was amazing to me is that all this meditation, all this yoga was great, but we got a lot of stress reduction with just breathing too. Just alone, and you send really positive signals to your heart. Your cardiovascular system kind of shapes up. It's amazing. It's amazing. I can't say enough about it. Another sort of way to use your breath is to get outside, or to exercise, or both. Ideally both. If you don't have access to one or the other, do it indoors, exercise. But by expanding your lungs through exercise, by expanding your lungs and being out in nature, you are getting a double hit of oxytocin, oxygenation, nitrous oxide, which opens up all your vessels, makes you feel better, reduces stress. Everything about it is working for you. So it's something that, that could be your new habit, is to, maybe you were doing inside exercise and you always wanted to go to that park, but you feel like you didn't have enough time. Or on your way home from work, maybe you've got a retail job or a grocery job, and you're on your way home from work, and there's a little park and you can just walk out there for a few minutes. Nature has this very special quality of being able to interrupt that rumination. There's been some studies on walking in nature, not even for exercise, just kind of meandering around. You actually will reduce your rumination as if you took an antidepressant, as if you did meditation. Okay, so don't think that you have to do and be perfect. Just even passively putting yourself in the right situation will help you. And then finally, for those of you who have a practice, yoga, meditation. I lucked out actually before the pandemic started. I had just done a retreat And as part of that retreat, we had a 90-day program where we had to meditate every day. And that helped me to establish that habit right as COVID was hitting. So I just count myself lucky. I'm no more special than anybody else. I've been meditating for 20 years. And that was the most longest period of time and the most meditation per day that I had done in like a decade, And so being able to invest in that, even if it's a minute a day, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Some people like to work their way up. Some people like to be very rigid and say, I want 30 minutes, If you do 30 minutes and you're rigid, make sure you use your iterative mindset so that if that doesn't happen one day, you don't experience failure and you don't lose your motivation to keep trying and seeing what will work. I'd rather you focus on what you can get yourself to do than to do something very ambitious and then to set yourself up for failure. But yoga, incredible breath exercises. Meditation, there's, focus on the breath. There's focus on loving kindness. Those things work doubly with oxytocin from our last section. It's really, really important. The thing that you want to do is find the thing that works for you and to, again, write down your favorite and figure that out. So to recap, we just went over 3 areas to get yourself in the strongest position you can be right now. Productivity, we went over how to habitualize things, how to routinize things, and to start to get a habit practice going so that you can ground everything in your life that you possibly can, that you can systemize. Even dumb little things like brushing your teeth, try to systemize that. Reordering products, try to systemize that. Do subscription models if you can. Second topic, relationships. We talked about oxytocin. I gave you 8 different ways to low-hanging fruit, shift your oxytocin immediately and start to build that up as a habit so that your relationships are stronger, more enjoyable, so that you get more out of it, you feel more love, because that's really important to, if you drain yourself at work and you don't have something that's feeding you, that's holding you up, making you feel connected, you're just going to feel isolated. And that's the most deadly, loneliness and isolation is the most deadly disease, way more deadly than heart disease and, diabetes and a lot of cancers. So we have to protect ourselves with our relationships. Final topic was well-being, and that is breath, being able to have these breathing exercises so that you can, do what you mean to do. All right. So I want you to know that I truly, truly care about this. I care about how you do with this as well. And it is very important to me that the habit that you pick today, you get traction. Okay. Remember, you are doing kind of an if this, then that beginner habit structure. If I need my relationship to be better, then I think I can get myself to do petting the dog, just start there. So that's your if this, then that. So if I'm feeling lonely, I'll pet the dog. If I'm feeling down, I'll pet the dog. If I know that I need oxytocin, I'll pet the dog. Okay. And what I want, I'm giving you my email here, co@freshTry.com, because I want you to stay in touch. I sincerely do. We're all in this together. This is not just some, superficial webinar. This is from my heart. I truly want you to succeed. I truly want you to stay in touch. I truly want to understand, what you're going through. And I want you to let me know how it goes. If there's anything I can do for you to help make your habit design better, make you a better, designer of habits, make you better at, picking up on little cues within yourself, I'm very happy to do that. Of course I have a busy life, so give me a little leeway. If it's over email, I might, take a day or 2 or so to get back to you, but please, please, please reach out. We are all humans together. We are all facing the same thing together. And I hope this lasts with you, in the form of your habit that you're forming. All right. That is all I have to share today. I look forward to the next one we have together. And please stay in touch, as I said, and go practice your habit that is going to make you powerful. Thank you very much.